All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start off by giving all praise to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Yahweh, which is the name of the Most High, and Yahweh Shai, which is the name of the only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Excuse me if I sound a little off in the distance here. I have the camera set up at a difficult angle here, but that's what I have to do in this certain circumstance I'm in at the moment. So pardon me if I sound a little further away from the camera. I'm hoping the audio still comes through clear. So anyway, there is this cat on the comment board, who was on there lately. He was on my comment board, and he also was in Mind of God's comment board. He's on there just basically talking a bunch of nonsense about well white people are not Israelites, and saying, but you guys are heathen, you guys are not Israelites. So then when you ask the brother about, what about the verses that speak about, Israel being referred to as, looking like other people, you bring up the verses to them and they don't even address it. This guy in particular, is a pain in the behind, to deal with, because whenever you ask him a question, it will literally go over his head and he'll just pretend that you didn't ask him. So, like, I'll give an example. Mind of God asked him a question, 8 times he asked him, and the man still never gave the answer. So we know this guy is really just a troll, because if he really did have the truth, then you would, be able to pull up precepts to support your statement. And then when you're asked a question containing to, your belief, you would be able to, have a discussion on why we're wrong and why you're right. Right? So if you did have the, the answers, you would be able to, engage with us, not just sit there and, just, talk shit, which is basically what the brother's doing. And I'm not trying to hate on him. I'm just, pointing out the facts. So anyway, you can see the brother's name there, right? Logan. And this was just one precept, I should say, one screenshot I took of one comment he put up. He said, the scriptures clearly instruct us not to cast pearls to swine. The children of Yasharallah bread is ours only. Right. But here's what they fail to understand, is that the scriptures clearly speak about, the Israelites. They would look like the the other nations that are on the earth. Right? They're called the confusion of face. Right? Confusion of face Israelites, right? When you deal with say for an example, when you deal with Paul, right? They would go to the Gentiles, right? But they would refer to them as they're really Israelite foreigners, right? So he would go to the Gentiles, which the Gentiles, depending on the context that you read, the majority of the times it's talking about Israelites who are scattered among those nations, right? So they look like those people, they act like those people, but they're really Israelites. It's just that they were raised, in those nations, okay? And that's a side topic, dealing with the Gentiles, so that we don't have to get into that here. But anyway, without further ado, I just wanted to pull up a couple, precepts, we'll give this brother a spiritual KO here, because he was really just on there, talking a bunch of nonsense. He can't really deal with what the Bible says. He's just on there, acting like he's smart, but then when he's put up to the test, then he really can't, his argument doesn't flow, for lack of better words. It just doesn't hold water, for lack of better words, or for a lack of better words, there is no proof of his statements. He's just saying something. Anyway, let's go to the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 9, and I want to get verse 7. Bear with me a moment. Okay, Daniel chapter 9 and verse 7, it says, O Lord, righteousness belongeth unto thee, but unto us confusion of face, as at this day to the men of Judah and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and unto all Israel that are near and that are far, through all the countries where thou hast driven them, because of their trespass that they have trespassed against thee. Right. So what is it talking about by confusion of face? That's talking about those of us who look like the heathens, but we actually are Israelites. Okay, so this pretty much cuts these cats, man. They're just sitting on there talking a bunch of nonsense, saying that and what he was really saying in his other comments was that you're not going to have any Israelites that look like other nations, right? All Israel is going to just be black. That's basically what he was saying, right? That there's no Israelites who who look like the other nations of people, right? They were just saying that, if you're black, then you're an Israelite. If you're white, you're an Edomite. And Henry was saying, well, you guys just can't get the facts. Well, I'll tell you what the facts are, man. Just deal with the scriptures. Because the scriptures clearly speak about Israelites will look like all people. And that's only one precept. We're going to go much deeper than that. And I want you to address this. Because all he does is just sits there and say, well, you're wrong. Then you ask, okay, well, why are we wrong? And then he doesn't know. He just says, well, you guys are scoffers then, because you can't accept the truth. It's like, okay, well, if you did have the truth, well, why don't you pull up some scriptures and let's discuss the scriptures? Because if you go to his page, right, he has no works on his page. He uploads no videos. He has no videos on his page. That just shows you, man. These cats, think they're smart, but they themselves have no works on their page. Scriptures say that, faith without works is dead, man. Okay, so, what the hell is this cat doing? Anyway, bear with me a moment. Let's go to the book of Romans, chapter 9, and verse 6. Not as though the word of Yahweh have taken none effect, for they are not all Israel, which are of Israel. Right, so what does that mean? You're going to have some Israelites, or I should say people who look like they're Israelites, who actually are Edomites. You know why? Because, Israelite man might lay with a heathen woman, so the child might come out looking, so-called mixed, right? So it could also go the other way around. Okay, a man might lay with a woman, and the child might come out, looking, black, right? But the father was white. And the mother was black, right? So, because the lineage goes by the father's side of the family. So, just as you're going to have people who look like Edomites, who are actually Israelites, you are also going to have people who look like Israelites who are also, actually Edomites. I should call them I got to watch what I say on here. Mind of God's on there talking about, oh, well, there's no reason to talk about who E is today. As he said, man, these cats don't know what the hell they're talking about. He's on there saying that, E isn't the white man. So that shows you, man, that a lot of these guys out here don't know the scriptures. Or they don't know them skip G's inside joke. Let's go to here. Listen here, Logan, I have a question for you, man. And I want you to answer this. I don't want to hear, you guys are just, as Mind of God would say, actors, right? You guys are actors, or you guys are pretendos. You guys are just heathens. No, I want you to deal with the text and defend your statement. And then as you defend your statement, or I should say so-called defend your statement, you should also address what we're saying so we can properly understand each other. This is the book of Revelation, chapter 7 and verse 9. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude, which no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hand. Right, but the reason I'm bringing this up is all these people here are Israelites, but these are Israelites who were scattered throughout all the nations, right? So these are, Gentiles, right? Israelite foreigners is what these people are. So why were they of all nations? Because they look like all nations, but they were actually Israelites. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because when John saw these people, he saw these people as being, all different, colors. I mean, you can clearly read the text where it says, of all nations and kindreds and peoples and tongues. Right now, that, of course, that doesn't mean these people being saved are E's or Moabites or any of that. They're actually Israelites, but these are confusion of faith Israelites who look like those heathen nations. Okay, because guys will use this to say that all nations can be saved. That's not true. These are the confusion of faith. You know, people who look like the other nations, but they're actually Israelites. Okay, just to put that disclaimer out there, but I'm bringing this up to show you that you are going to have people who are saved, who are Israelites, who look like these other nations of people. Okay, so Logan, how do you get around that? And then if you ask him that, he's like, well, he don't know. He doesn't know, so he'll sit there and say you're wrong, but yet he himself has no idea. You know what I'm saying? Let's get more and more precept, because as I said, man, this is easy work here. This isn't, you know, we're just really making an example out of this man. All right, because you know, hey, look, you know, we're welcome to have a discussion about it, but you know, when I try to discuss with him, you know, all he can do is sit down there and say, you guys are wrong. You ask him, well, why are we wrong? Could you please explain to us? And he can't do that. You bring up a verse, he don't want to go to it. So it's like, hey, look, man, you can, you know, you can get lost, man. All right, because this isn't for you. Okay? I mean, hell, you could be a heathen. How the hell do you know you're not? Okay, anyway, Matthew chapter 24. And let's go to, bear with me a second. Okay, this is the book of Matthew chapter 24 and verse 30. It says, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and with great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other. Right. Now, why is that important? Because it's speaking about how the angels are going to gather together the elect out of all nations upon the earth. Okay, they're going to be all over the world, right? They're going to look like all people, right? They're scattered throughout all the earth. Okay, so, you know, I mean, there's really not much to go into. I mean, the information has been presented. You are going to have Israelites who look like the other nations, you know, on earth today. Okay, it's very clear. And if that's not true, Logan, if you're at least deal with the Revelation, 7 and 9. Okay, so I don't want to hear you, just talking on a comment board. As the deacon would say, right? As the deacon would say, give me book, chapter, verse, right? Give me book, chapter, verse, Logan. Okay. So, anyway, that's going to be the video there. I just wanted to do a little response to that because, I found them pretty annoying. But I just wanted to bring those up because I asked him about it and he didn't know. He was just like, well, you guys are wrong. It's like, okay, well, what do these verses mean? And, of course, he doesn't really know. He's just saying stuff, to act like he's smart, So anyway, just use that brother as an example of how not to be, man. Hey, the scriptures say, answer any man who asks you a reason of your belief. And the scriptures also say to debate your cause. So, I mean, this brother got a spiritual KO, man. That's all I'm going to say. So I hope the brother's, very sincere, and I believe he's sincere. But, he's clearly just sincerely wrong, right? As Elder Apostle Dahar would say. But anyway, with that being said, I'm going to say shalom.